This week's Michigan Lottery Excellence in Education winner is Whitney Holdwick, who is from Harbor Beach Middle School, and your nominator sent in a video. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to nominate Whitney Holdwick for the Excellence in Education Award. Whitney's a phenomenal educator, committed to achievement for all students, whatever it takes. Whit has extremely high professional expectations for herself, models that for her students, and holds herself and her students to the concept of all can and all will. Whit, continue to be the great professional that you've been with the standards that you've set and the integrity that you show every day at work and in your personal life. Congratulations.
What goes through your mind when you saw the video?
So sweet. And honestly, it's very true. I do hold myself to high expectations as my students. And so I appreciate that that is visible to others. I care a lot about my students, and it just reminds me that I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Who's Ron?
So he is a former superintendent. When I first started, he's the one who hired me.
Wow.
Just out of college. So he's had a pretty big impact on the kind of educator I am, and so I appreciate all of his support throughout the years.
I'm curious, what kind of educator are you? How would you define yourself?
I would describe myself as fun. I like to have fun with my students, have a personality, but in the same sense, my job is to help them learn, and not just academics, but learn about the amazing person that they can be someday, learn about the world around them and how to treat each other and treat themselves. And so, yeah, I love going in there every day, and I hope they know that I care about them, number one, and I would describe myself as in their corner at all times, even though that might not always to them look like I'm in their corner when I'm kind of holding them to those expectations.
So one of the things that I know you do with your students is a check-in circle. Tell us about that, and why is that important?
So I love the check-in circle. I started it relatively recently, but I use it as a way to almost step away from academics and just focus on my students and their well-being. And it's really quite like it sounds. So we all sit in a circle, and I have a talking piece, and I ask a question. And for some questions, I pass the talking piece around and everyone answers. If they don't want to, they can pass. But it's usually, okay, how are we doing today? How are we feeling? And then the questions get a little more in depth from there. So last year, I would use it if I knew they were struggling with something in PE, if we were having some issues in how we treat each other. We create a social contract in our classroom on how we expect to treat each other in and outside of the classroom. And so whenever things needed to be addressed, we would use the check-in circle to kind of talk through some of those social emotional issues that we would have. And honestly, the feedback from the students, it has just been awesome. They surprised me with their honesty in the discussions and their openness and willing to kind of talk through some of those. But I actually learn a lot just in listening to them. And part of it, I decided to push them to do affirmations. And so affirmations are positive messages that we can either say to ourselves or to others. And so we would write affirmations on index cards, and sometimes I would just let the students hand it to the students that they wrote about. Other times I would make them read them, because I think that's important as a society to actually tell people how awesome they are, and we probably don't do it enough. And it was a little uncomfortable, but they got really good at it by the end of the year, and so I'm hoping to kind of continue that into my middle school classes this year, and yeah.
I absolutely love that, but you don't have to do that. Why do you go above and beyond with your students?
It's important. I mean, they need to know that I care about them as an individual, and that they are important, it's not just about academics in my classroom. I mean, that's important as well, but let's be honest, they're not going to learn from someone who doesn't care about them and from someone that they can't respect and trust. And so I work hard to build that relationship with my kids every year, every day. And so they need to know that that has to be emphasized. The person that they are is important. It's not just about a test score.
Yeah, self-esteem's huge for kids. If you were to run into a person who's aspiring to be a teacher, what would you tell them the key to success is?
Building relationships every day. If I were to tell them what's probably the hardest thing, but the most important thing is building relationships. Let's be honest, all students that walk into our classroom doors aren't excited to be there. They aren't willing to always work hard and do whatever, but through relationships, anything can be possible. And so that's where it has to start. It has to start with getting to know the kids. It has to start with meeting them at their level, even on the tough days, even on those days where they push you away and, you go back the next day and you try again. And, you try to learn how you can reach them. And so I would say relationships are the foundation. Everything else comes after.
Yeah. Well, thank you for what you do. You're making a difference.
I appreciate it.
Whitney receives a $1,500 check from the Michigan Lottery, and her class at Harbor Beach Middle School receives a $500 grant. Excellence in Education Awards, sponsored by the Michigan Lottery, providing more than $26 billion to public education since 1972.